Good morning. Time for another edition of Pre-Market PulseScan with yours truly, Dex the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave price trigger reports that we put right in your hand each and every trading day. Well, I must say, I really do hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Hopefully, it was relaxing for you. You were able to take some time to just chill and relax and de stress. It's been a lot of stress going on, these past several weeks and couple of months. It's just been like that. It's been one of those times, one of those days. And you just have to sometimes de stress. And the best way to do that is by chilling on the weekends. You know, it is an encouraging thing to yourself when you can do that because it does. It helps you to be around friends, family, loved ones, whatever. Even in this social distancing world that we woke up to find ourselves in, it just is what it is. So take times out on the weekend to de stress. If you haven't already been, it's very important to do that. All right, speaking of stress, check this out. Overnight markets. Dow futures is up 248 points at 27,321. The NASDAQ 100 is up 16 points at 98.26. S&P 500, that E-mini S&P broke 3,200. We're now at 3,209, up 22 and a quarter points. The Russell is up 29.6 points at 1532.3. That's right, breaking the 1,500 mark. The Bitcoin Futures Composite Index on the June contract is down $5. It's trading at 97.95. The overnight high was 99, and the overnight low was 97.20. All right, so we're at the lower end of that spectrum now. Looking at nat gas, unchanged, trading at $1.77. Crude oil futures down 60 cents, trading at $38.95. It should be noted that crude oil finally broke the $40 mark. The overnight high is $40.42. That's quite the rally off of negative 100, isn't it? Take a look at the long bond. It's down 11.30 seconds at 172 and 5/30 seconds. Gold futures up $9.90 at $1,692.80. Overnight high did break 1,700 again, was at 1,701 and a half. Just not enough to hold it at this point in time. Looking at silver right now, silver futures are up 27 cents at $17.75. Overnight high was $17.94. Could not get back over $18. Taking a look at the US dollar index, down another 13 pips at 96.79, starting to move lower into that 96 handle, which is moving further and further away from par. Taking a look at the euro dollar, it is up 10 pips at 113.06. Pound sterling up 10 pips at 126.79. Excuse me, the Aussie is up 25 pips at 69.93. Canadian dollar down 31 pips at 133.92. Euro yen down 34 pips at 123.38. And the dollar again is down 40 pips at 109.20. New Zealand dollar, the Kiwi is up 26 pips at 65.35. Soybeans down 3/4 of a point, trading at 8.67. Corn up 2 1/4 at 333 and a half. And wheat down 2 1/2, trading at 512.75. And that is our overnight markets. Now, switching gears, we're going to look at the overnight market news. France is set to bail out its ailing aerospace industry. Very interesting. Bailing out aerospace now? with a rescue package worth billions of euros. In an effort to help its depressed aerospace sector, France is reportedly preparing to unveil an economic rescue package worth billions of euros on Tuesday. That's the first time I'm listening to aerospace being bailed out. That's pretty odd. Aerospace being bailed out. So, what? What happened to aerospace that it needs to be bailed out? That's weird. That's some weird news there. I don't get that one. Maybe because it's Monday or something. I don't know. Central banks can't cure the virus. Former Fed Governor Krosner says and lays out the next steps policymakers may take to respond to the virus. This is getting curiouser and curiouser by the moment. All right, let's see here. Central banks can't cure the virus. Former Fed Governor Krosner says and lays out the next steps policymakers may take to respond to the virus. As central banks around the world continue to roll out measures to keep their economies afloat during the pandemic, former central banker Randall Krosner says the central banks can't cure the virus. Futures rise on optimism over economic revival. U.S. stock index futures rose on Monday as a surpassingly upbeat jobs report last week added to optimism that the world's biggest economy has weathered the worst fallout of the coronavirus outbreak. Morgan Stanley flags risk oil prices rally will lead to a fall. Oil prices have quickly climbed to levels that raise the risk of price falls as demand is fragile. Morgan Stanley said on Monday as benchmark crude oil hits 3 months, the highest in 3 months. U.S. Fed's Main Street lending facility likely to start with a whimper. The Federal Reserve's most ambitious and complicated crisis relief program is set to launch in coming days, but it is far from certain that the small and mid-sized businesses the $600 billion Main Street lending facility is meant to help will come clamoring for loans. PG&E expects to raise $5.75 billion from public offerings to fund bankruptcy. Exit. Power provider PG&E Corp said on Monday it plans to raise $5.75 billion from public offerings to partially fund its emergence from Chapter 11 bankruptcy. All right. 140 top scientists who are funded by Mark Zuckerberg are criticizing Facebook for letting Trump spread misinformation. More than 140 scientists doing research funded by Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, have said Facebook should not allow President Donald Trump to use the platform to spread both misinformation and incendiary statements. Stocks are mixed. In Asia, the Nikkei 225 is up 1.4%. The Shanghai Composite is up 0.24%. And the Hang Seng is flat. In Europe, the DAX is down 0.1%. The Euro Stoxx 50 is down 0.3%. And the FTSE 100 is up 0.1%. And in the US of A, the stock index futures are up between 0.1% and 0.8%. First quarter earnings coming in. Copa Inc. Software Register and BBVA Banco Francis are due. Economic data released today. Let's see. Chile trade balance and Canada housing starts are due. All right, so that is a look at what's been happening around the globe on this beautiful Monday morning. It's Monday. I know people are still waking up. I'm still waking up. Gotta let the coffee, work its way through. So it is what it is. I may sound like I'm fumbling and bumbling a little bit. Please forgive me. It's Monday. All right, let's do something to lighten up the mood a little bit. How about some fun facts? Okay, so fun fact. My mom was a very artistic individual. I didn't realize this until much later in life when I accidentally found out that my mother was a poet. She wrote poems and she never let anyone see. I found out by accident one day. So I realized that my mom was an avid, or should I say rabid, researcher. I found hidden books, research material and stuff like that she had hidden in the closet. Mama was a very, very, very intellectual young lady, but that part of her she kept hid for whatever reasons. I suffice that to say, artistic influences that go from written form to visual stimulus. There's nothing new under the sun. These things go back thousands of years. Different cultures had different means and ways of artistic expression. A lot of the statues and pyramids and different archaeological sites are filled with, everything from hieroglyphic type writings to little statues, little idols, that pagans worshipped, all types of things. We also know that a lot of origins of the music that we have heard over the last few decades is not really new either. A lot of these musical notes and tones, beats and rhythms go back thousands of years to different cultures. We know that rap music has its origins in Africa through the rhythm of the drums. There was different types of drum rhythms for different types of things. If you were away on a hunting expedition for your tribe, you would hear a certain type of a bass rhythm on the drum that would alert you to maybe a warring tribe that is closing in. So you need to hear them get back to your people so you can defend yourself and your property and your family. Then there were other types of rhythms to let you know where it was time to do some type of a festival or some type of a pagan ritual or what have you. So we had these type of origins, okay? But did you know that battle rap is also not new? For those of you that are fans of battle rap culture, you may think that battle rap and rap goes back to the 60s and 70s, 1960s, 70s, and early 80s. But you would be wrong. Battle rap has its origins going back, thousands of years as well. Did you know that in the Middle East, particularly in Arabia, local poets would gather and battle and to see whose poetry was the best? And there would be a crowd gathering around listening and judging. That's right. The origins of battle rap has its origins in the Middle East, in a place called Arabia, on the outskirts of what we call Mecca today and Medina. Fun facts to lighten the mood a little bit. So there you have it, folks. The origins of battle rap goes all the way back to the Middle East in Arabia. All right. So now that we've lightened up the mood a little bit and you just got some fun facts about the origins of battle rap, why don't we move forward now to what I would like to call a potluck hodgepodge of topics today? Because it's Monday. We want to be all over the place. We want to help your mood today, so you can be in the right frame of mind. So we start off a little light, little fun, and then it's time to dig in. There's a lot going on. The world doesn't stop on the weekends just because we're chilling and using that time to decompress and hang out with family and friends, or just watch movies or play video games or whatever that floats your boat, working in your garden, whatever. But there's something that I found interesting, and I think it's very telling of where we are today. Now, I will say that, my inbox gets rocked on a daily. People sending me stuff to take a look at, to investigate. They want to know what my opinions are on certain things. For those of you who are new to the channel and don't really know, I used to, one of my first jobs I had out of high school was a research job, believe it or not. I got paid for doing research. So I became really, really good at research. This is before the internet. This is before online and Google. Okay, it's before web pages and all that. All right, where it wasn't so easy. You had to physically get up off of your butt. You had to get off of your chair, and you had to go down to the library. And you had to deal with the Dewey Decimal System, and you had to go to the reference part of the library and literally pick up a book, a thing called a book. Some of you probably never heard of the word book, don't know what a book is. A book is one of those things that have a lot of pages in it. Some are paperback, some are hardback, some are small, some are very large. And you had to physically sit down for hours and hours researching and looking at microfiche, microfilm, hours and hours of microfilm, hours and hours of old newspaper clippings and stuff going all the way back. It was a lot. It was a lot more entailed. You would be sitting at a table and you may have 20 books surrounding you, big old encyclopedias and stuff. And, in a way, it was kind of fun because you had to hunt in the library for what you were looking for. And majority of the time, the library had everything you could want in it. But then other times, they would have to order stuff from another library. So I had a chance to look at a lot of books that today are out of print. Books today that no longer exist. You can't even get your hands on it. I saw a lot of stuff. A lot of the stuff had pictures too, from going back to when we first, created the camera, and able to take photographs. So it was pretty neat, man, looking at some of this stuff. I don't know the date, but there was something, someone had, there were always people creating and trying to do various things of cameras and stuff. Those of you who know about photography stuff, you could probably help me out with this. There was something I saw that was like one of the very first pictures taken of someone who had developed like a type of a camera or something, like a Polaroid or something. I'm trying to think, was it back to the colonial period? It was something. It was like early 1800, or maybe even the late 1700s. I mean, seriously, it was crazy. And you could see a little bit, and they took a picture. They developed it, and it was really weird, man. You couldn't really make out too much, but some things you could, but it was weird. And it was actual photograph, and I was able to look at all these things. I say all that to say that when you do a lot of, looking at history, and I'm a history buff, I love history. You find out a lot of things that, like, knowledge that has been lost over the years. And I say that to lead into where we're going next. If you look at what's been going on as of the last few weeks with the Floyd situation, the cops murdering the unarmed African American man. Okay, it brought up a lot of race relation type tensions. And like I said before, this is no easy fix. It's not like someone's going to just come on the scene and give a speech that just changes the hearts and minds of human beings. That is not possible. All right. I will say that the United States has made a lot of progress, okay, since, the civil rights movement. But a lot of things have been lost to history. A lot of certain things have been lost to history. When you think the month of February, you think Black History Month. All right, there's the opening bell, you guys, for those that need to go and handle their business and play some tickets. All right. So when you think of like February, you think of Black History Month, you think of Martin Luther King, you think of the holiday, and all these things. But there's so many other players and individuals that their names never come up. Never. You never really hear that. You don't get to hear a lot of the information that's been lost from just that time period alone. Now, my baby brother hit me up to something. He put me on to something. A guy named James Baldwin. Are you guys familiar with him? He's an author, and during the 1960s, he was involved in a few debates, as a matter of fact. One of the famous ones that he had was when James Baldwin debated William F. Buckley, and that happened in 1965. Then another good debate / discussion that he was involved in, he actually had one with Malcolm X when he was discussing race relations in America. And then there was another excerpt I saw about him talking about America's racial problem. Very, very eye-opening. It's funny how that name doesn't really come up during Black History Month. You just think about Martin Luther King, basically. That's all you know. That's all you hear. That's all you see. But there's other issues involved. Even going back to that period, it's not what you think. A narrative has been created to paint an image of certain things, what they want you to take away from the whole civil rights movement, what's going on there. But did you know? Now, I know images come to you because remember, we've all been propagandized. If you've gone to public schools in the last, I want to say 70 years, you've been propagandized to a certain degree. Now, mind you, if you went to school in the 40s and the 50s, you were propagandized on a different type of a level. It was more extremely subtle, but the thing didn't really ramp up and didn't really go full bore technically into the 70s. That's right. If you were in school in the 70s, yeah, you were the first of a new aggressive form of propaganda. So those who know what I'm talking about, certain images come to your mind when you think of February, you think of Black History Month, and for the most part, you're really thinking about, when you think of Black history, you think of Martin Luther King. You may think of Malcolm X, but not as much of Martin Luther King. You may think of Mary McLeod Bethune. You may think of Harriet Tubman. Frederick Douglass. Things like that. And that's nice. That's good. That's all fair and good. But there are a lot of other names that you miss. And if you haven't had the opportunity to go back and listen to and or watch some unpopular debates and things that took place at that time, you would realize something very odd and very peculiar, that there were a lot of quote unquote Negro / Black / African American / Afro American. There were Black people of all different walks of life. Some were scholars, some were authors, some were even ministers, pastors, whatever. They did not agree with a lot of what was going on in the whole movement, if you will, in the civil rights movement. All right. And some of them vehemently debated the issue, but you don't hear their names. You don't see those debates. It's very interesting to hear what was really going on at that time, especially if you were not born, if you did not live during that period. All right. Then you don't have those unique perspectives of people who was there, people who marched with King and who were there with Malcolm X and knew the person personally and talked with him, handled him, touched him, held his hand, hugged him, shook his hand, whatever. If you weren't there, then you miss a certain perspective. But because of technology, we have the ability to go back and we can watch those and listen to those things for the first time. And those who were there, they get to relive those moments. They can remember what they had for lunch during that day or what have you. But for the rest of us, we have archives and we can go and we can check these things out. There were certain elements of our society that were prevalent then that are not prevalent now. And I'm not talking about from a racial discriminatory point of view. I'm talking about what's been happening in the so-called Black family, in the Black society. You could make an argument that in a way, Black people were better off during the civil rights issues of the 60s than they are today in some aspects. Now, I know that it's going to trigger a lot of people. That's going to make people say, what in the world are you talking about and where are you going with this? If you would like to know the whole deep background of this, well, then I would suggest you probably have to do a little bit of research yourself. I'll give you some bibliography real quick before I get a little bit deep on you. I'm gonna give you a little something because I know some people like to go in and they like to fact check and they like to argue and take issue with. But one of my favorite authors of all time is a young man by the name of Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell has written many books, and one of them is called Black Rednecks and White Liberals. I believe if you get that book and if you read it, or if you like me, you like audiobooks, you can listen to the audiobook of it. I think it will open your eyes to a few things. Particular, there's another one that you should check out of his called Ethnic America. Ethnic America. I think those two books go hand in hand in a way. Very, very telling. Very telling. And then once you've done with those two books, I think a good icing on the cake with a cherry on top, or for those of you who are allergic to cherries, maybe a strawberry on top. And for those of you that are allergic to cherries and strawberries, might I offer another one? It's called Outliers, Story of Success. I think that would help you too. So take those three reference materials, make a note of that, and then I think that will help you for those that are having problem or trouble understanding what I am saying. In a lot of ways, in the 1960s, during the civil rights, even during the 50s, even during the 40s, 1940s, 1940, 50, and 60s. Okay. So the Black family was better off during those time periods than they are day in this day and age. There are a lot of problems that plague Black Americans, African Americans, that have nothing to do with racism. Zero to do with racism. It has to do with choices. Now, there was another young man who was attacked not so long ago because he made a very controversial statement. He said that, in his opinion, 400 years of slavery in America was more so a decision that was made by quote unquote Black people. And that if they really had the will to do so and wanted to, they could have risen up long ago. People took issue with him and was really mad. I mean, they got triggered. People were emotional. They didn't respond from an intellectual standpoint. They didn't come at him with a debater's logic. They attacked him emotionally. And then they quickly reduced to ad hominem attacks and attacking his person. They couldn't really do battle with the words that he said. No one was able to pick apart successfully his statement without triggering their emotionalism into it and attacking his person. That is not proper debate. But what he was really saying at the heart of the matter was choices and decisions of African Americans throughout their history in the United States. Now, I will tell you, for those of you who are not history buffs and have not looked into history, history is full of people who rebelled and fought back during enslavement or being taken over or what have you. People don't like to talk about it, but there's a little section. If you pull up a map, there's a little section. There's this one little strip of land. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it because they probably didn't teach you this in public school. But there's this little rare, unheard of patch of land in the middle of the ocean. And a lot of people have not discovered this piece of land. They really haven't discovered this piece of land. So I'm going to give it to you first here. You may want to take notes because this is a part of land that to this day, a lot of people aren't familiar with. But something happened in this little part of the world, this little piece of land located in the middle of the ocean. And on this land, there were other people taken from Africa and enslaved. This little strip of land that I'm referring to, I know a lot of you have not heard it. You can't even think what I'm talking about. But it was a little place called Haiti. And the slaves there did something that the slaves in America didn't do. They revolted. And guess what? They were free a lot earlier than the Americans were. Now, I know what you're going to say. Well, the Americans tried to also. I know you're thinking about Nat Turner. I know you're thinking about that. But that was localized. That didn't involve the entire country. All right? But the entire country of Haiti did revolt. And they were successful. I'm just saying. It is what it is. See, when you get away from debate and you get away from real research and you get away from breaking down and separating science from scientific method, those are not the same. Those are two different things. Science is the religion of the natural universe. Scientific method is the study of the natural universe. Totally different. Science, the people like to throw around, is the religion believing in the natural realm, worshiping nature. Whereas scientific method is the research of said scientific natural world. People get that twisted. Not talking about the religion of science. I'm talking about scientific method. When you break things down and draw them out to their logical conclusion, you will determine the depth and the level of your programming, of your propagandizement. A lot of people have problem today with clear critical thinking. They can't do critical thinking. Some people are deceived into thinking that they're doing critical thinking when they're not doing critical thinking. It's really interesting. All right. So what people don't get, though, is that sometimes things are not as deep as people think they are. But I want to show you something, because I believe that the real enemy of the Black family now in the United States is not white people. I believe the real enemy of the Black family in the United States are other Black people, and particularly those that call themselves leaders, Black leaders. All right. Those that feed off of race baiting, those that profit and profiteer off of keeping a racist narrative going and going and going. Those Black leaders, such as certain Black Congress people and Black senators, certain Black pastors and Black historians, if you will, certain people within the Black Hotep movement, certain people call themselves pastors of Christianity, certain people that call themselves Hebrew Israelites. I believe that those that are in Black leadership are responsible, and it's, of course, the Black intelligentsia as well, especially. I think those are the individuals who have done the worst damage to the Black family, because they have perpetuated a lot of the, believe it or not, racist rhetoric that they are so-called fighting against. Again, we go back to the whole Planned Parenthood thing. And when you look at the origins of that, we know it's not a conspiracy theory. It is a fact. All right. We all know it. It's not even open for debate, because it's nothing to debate. They said it, they did it, it's done. Planned Parenthood is still in every urban center in America. Every Black inner city has a Planned Parenthood. You do not see that in the quote unquote white suburbs, only in the Black intercities. Another thing you see in the Black urban area is a liquor store on every corner. You do not see that in white suburbia. Just keeping it 100, keeping it a buck, keeping it real. All right. It is what it is. All right. There's a lot of, like I said, the Black intelligentsia is nothing more than the Black boule, the gatekeepers of knowledge and information. And that goes from the NAACP all the way down to the Black Lives Matter. When you break down what they say and what they do, you have to ask yourself some questions, some hard questions, like, why is it that, the whole thing with the civil rights, especially, they wanted the same rights guaranteed under the law, under the Constitution, for Black people as for white people, which should have been done from day one. Now, they had a lot of good points back then. All right. It was unspoken and spoken racism. You had white only fountains. We know from facts, not talking about conspiracies. We're talking about facts. Not conspiracy theories, conspiracy facts. We know that there was an issue in the California housing market where they wouldn't allow blacks to move in to certain white neighborhoods. We know that through the Jim Crow laws in the South, blacks weren't allowed to own property, couldn't do nothing. They made it so that even though slavery freed the black person, they were not given the equal opportunities to become successful, to start businesses and to go to school and get quality educations. So when the whole, segregation thing came about, and desegregation, you still had these issues. All right. It was harder. It was not an equal playing field. So all those issues were real and were true. We know about the whole Black Wall Street thing and how the white people burnt down those people's homes and drove them out of the community. And then when they drove them out, they came and passed laws and legislations and did very evil, wicked things and took their properties and made it legal for them to buy and take their properties and everything that they owned. We know that these things happen. We know that the Ku Klux Klan was allowed to run wild and rampant in the South and do whatever they wanted to without fear of prosecution. We know that blacks were hung and burned. We know about the bombings with the two little black girls in the church. We know about all the carnage that took place. We know that the racism was real. But racism is not new. Racism has existed since the beginning of time. All right. Neighbors, warring tribes, warred against each other all the time. We also know that there were all types of slaves. Just about every civilization on the face of the earth had slaves. Men took their brothers into slavery since the beginning. We know there are different types of slavery. People like to point that out without doing the true research to it. All right. So when you look into history going back maybe a couple thousand, I'll give it like 3,000. I'll say 2,000 years ago. They had two different types of slavery that were in operation. You had the slavery that was akin to the chattel slavery of America, and then you had the employee-employer relationship that was considered slavery. For the most part, if you weren't self-sufficient, you were a slave because you went to go work for someone else who paid you a wage. We know that some of them had lifelong slavery where they would work for a wealthy person all their life and would even get branded saying that I work for this person. And they had an amazing relationship. They weren't beaten or hurt. As a matter of fact, there were laws that prevented that. You had to pay your slaves. You had to treat them, and they had rights. They could vote. They could work. They could do whatever they wanted to. And it was the employer relationship, kind of akin to what we have today. Those were the beginnings of what we have today. So there are different types of slavery that existed throughout history. So to make it seem like the slavery that was in the United States was just so bad, it was so horrible, which it was, but it wasn't anything unaccustomed to in history. We understand that all the different things that happened to a lot of the African Americans in America was not new. And we also know that they like to blame the white man for everything. The white man is not the one who set up this transatlantic slave trade. It was the Arabs. All right. They were the masterminds of that and kept everything going the way it was going. Truth be told. Okay. See, they don't want to talk about that. They want to focus on the white man. And they say that's why, and these are the atrocities that happen. And it's funny because, the black gatekeepers like to keep your focus on the atrocities of slavery and bondage in America. They want you to focus on the atrocities, but they don't want to tell you that, oh, by the way, black people had slaves too in America. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about how black people had slaves overseas before they even came to America. It was customary. It was reasonable and customary throughout human history that whenever two tribes, nations, clans warred against each other, the victor would take the men and children as slaves and take the women as concubines and wives. Why do people pretend like they don't know this or like that doesn't exist? It is what it is. It is what it is. Man has conquered man throughout history. All right? If you were conquered, you knew that you were conquered. You knew what that meant. You're going into slavery. And what did they use you to do? They used you to build their pyramids, build their cities, build their roads, build their bridges. Is that not what happens throughout history? Right? So why do they see this any different? The only reason why it was different, because in this case, the slaves were being sold to foreigners from another land. But see, what they don't want you to focus on is that when the white man first stepped foot in Africa, Africa was already divided. It wasn't one big country. It was many, 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 many clans and factions and countries, if you will, warring against one another, taking each other into slavery, doing the same thing that you are mad at the white man for doing. Your people are already doing it to each other. And if you really want to be mad at somebody, see, they don't want to talk about these things. I'm going to talk about it because that's what we do on the PreMarket PulseScan. We do markets and we talk about facts and truths so that people can understand what's going on and how you can mentally defend against it. Okay. The white chattel slavery that existed in America, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, based on my research and study into the subject, my extensive study, I should say, into the subject, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, with no uncertainty at all, that the slavery in America is not what everyone that is a race baiter will have you to believe. For the most part, it was no worse than the slavery of the past. It was no worse than atrocities committed in the past. All right? Genocide is worse than slavery. History is full of genocides. History shows us that once a people are disarmed, that's when the genocide begins because they have no weapons to fight back with. You can Google that. That's there. Look it up. Look at historical genocides and you will see there have been a plethora of them. Some of the worst atrocities was not American slavery. If you really want to break it down to little bits and pieces until it can't be broken down no more, you will see that the atrocities in the West, in America, were not as bad as, how about the Roman Catholic Church Inquisition? Do you know how many thousands of people were murdered, executed during that Inquisition? Terrible. And that was done under the guise of Christianity. The Roman Catholic Church is not Christianity. You can say that for another broadcast, or you can Google it and you'll find out yourself. Sorry, don't mean to hurt nobody's feelings, but it's not. All right? It is not biblical Christianity. Sorry. The fact that American, or should I say, because they're not, well, that's a whole different thing. The fact that slaves, when they came here to the New World off of those slave ships, and you've heard it said by the race baiters how they took a Bible, the white man's Bible, and shoved it in their face and told them this was their God and that God was doing this to them, and this is why they're in this. And they was quoting the scene from the Old Testament. and saying, see, this is what happened because, one of Noah's sons came in when he was drunk and naked, looked at him, and then Noah cursed him, God cursed him. And so, yeah, you're that people and you're cursed. All right. That is what you like to hear. That's what they say. All right. That's what the race baiters do. But what they don't tell you is that regardless of all of that, that also was not biblical Christianity. Sorry, man stealing is a sin. Look it up in the Old Testament. Man stealing is a sin, has always been a sin. What is man stealing? That's kidnapping. That's slavery. It's wickedness. God did not condone that at all. At all. So, moving forward, they don't tell you either that the Roman Catholic Church Inquisition was more horrific than the slavery in America. In addition to that, guess what else was worse than American slavery? I'm going to tell you what else was worse. I'll tell you. Muhammad's conquering of Africa. Do you know how he did it? He gave you a choice, like you hear today in a lot of gangster rap and gangster stories. They tell you get down or lay down. Well, that's what Muhammad did. Muhammad was a bandit. People don't like to talk about that, but we're going to talk about it today. He gave his conquered people a choice. Convert to Islam right now, here and now, and renounce your beliefs. If you're a pagan, renounce that. If you're a Christian, renounce Jesus and become a Muslim or die. That's what they did. Become a Muslim right now or die. That was your choice. And one of the most horrific acts that he did was he dug a big pit and set it on fire. All right? Can you imagine that? A big pit and throwing fuel in it and setting it on fire and throwing Christians in there who refused to denounce Christ and convert to Islam. Threw them in the fire pit. That was his thing. Either you convert and join my army or you die. No, yeah, that's a lot worse than being bought as a slave to America. Yeah, it's a lot worse. Sorry. Genocide, murder is worse than slavery. Any day of the week. Sorry, it's just how it is. All right. So, if you want to talk about injustices of the past, let's not just focus on America. Well, black people built this country and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, you can say that of any and every civilization. What they don't tell you, too, is that, there were white slaves, too, by the way. There were white slaves. There were indigenous Americans also put into slavery. There were Asians put into slavery. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It wasn't just a quote-unquote black African by himself. And like I said, there were black people that owned slaves, too, in America and in Africa. So if we're going to deal with it, let's deal with it. All right. The white man is not solely responsible for this for slavery. All right. He had help. He had the Arab. Oh, let's not forget the Spanish. They were in on it too. That whole triangle. Yeah. Spanish and the British. And you had the Arabs that completed your triangle of slavery. All right. That's that whole that transatlantic slave route. You had all three of them involved, but you only hear about the quote unquote British part of it. You hear about those people that fled Britain and came over here and did what they did. But you keep forgetting about Christopher Columbus. All right. You keep forgetting about the Spanish, and you don't like to talk about anyone else or the Arabs. You just want to focus on the quote unquote white man. All right. Let's deal with it. It is what it is. All right. People don't like to talk about these facts, these dirty little secrets of history, but they are. All right. Now, keep this. People like to talk about reparations. Right now, you got Bob Johnson talking about trillions of dollars in reparations for quote unquote black people. But let's break this down, what that means. First of all, it's a little too late because no one alive today endured the atrocities of American slavery. Those were your ancestors, not you. Not you. You pay reparations to people who the reparations are due. You don't wait 1,000 years later. So, oh, let me just give some reparations to people who look a certain way. It doesn't work like that. And when you say reparations, let's break this down. Because I know people like to argue, well, other people groups have received reparations. Really, have you really broken that down and really taken a look into that? What it really looked like? What does it really look like? What happens? All right. It's not reparations because you didn't suffer those atrocities. You give the reparations to those who received the atrocity. Case in point, if I'm roughed up by a cop and it's caught on camera, he doesn't kill me, but it's caught on camera, and then I sue the city where I live for $10 million, that money is paid to me. Those are reparations paid directly to me. If the cop kills me and my wife and children sue the city and they win, then those reparations are being paid to my immediate family, my wife and my children. Goes to my estate. Payments are always sent directly to the offended. The whole reparations scam is exactly what it is. It's a scam, you guys. It's no different than the bailouts being handed out right now. You think that's free? Where do you think that money's coming from? They're just gonna print it out of thin air. See, this is part of what I'm talking about. People not really thinking things through. All right. Now, it goes a lot deeper than that. But see, you guys need to understand, like I said, the true blame should be placed on the leadership of Black people in America, the ones you call your heroes. Why is it that in every district where a Black person is the leader, is in leadership, why is there still these atrocities in the inner city? 70 years later, some of these Black politicians, whether they be Democrat or Republican, their districts are jacked up and have been jacked up as long as they've been in office. And some of them are career politicians. They've been in office 20, 30, 40 years and no difference. Has anyone ever asked that question? Has anyone answered those questions? Why is it that those districts are still jacked up? How many years has Maxine Waters been in office? And what's going on in her district? Let's deal with it. Let's deal with if you really want to go there, who's really hurting the Black people right now? Those people are the Black intelligentsia, the Black boule, the Black leadership, the Black congressmen and senators. And yes, also the Black president. We had a Black president and still nothing changed. President Obama did less for Black people than any other president. You could make the argument that Bill Clinton did more for Black people than Barack Obama. You can make an argument that Bill Clinton had more Black people surrounding him in his office than Obama did. People think that all you need is the right Black man and he'll be our savior and he will help Black people. We have had Black congressmen. We have had Black senators. We have had Black mayors. We have had Black governors. We've had Black school teachers. We've had Black professors and university. We've even had Black Supreme Court judges. And to top it off, we even had a Black president. Explain to me exactly how far have we come? in this country? I'll wait. No, the situation is still the same. There have been no change. No change. No change. Think about it. Like I said, the inner cities are still the same, even after having a black president, black U.S. Supreme Court judges, black mayors, black governors, black senators, black congressmen, black school teachers, black university professors. And still, the state of the black family is abysmal. Abysmal. Why is that? Can we talk about it? Why is that? And don't say, all right, I see you, Kyle. I see y'all in the live chat, man. I see y'all. Don't think I don't see y'all. I saw you, Kyle. You said you think what black people really want is a level economic playing field. That's impossible. Black people cannot have a level economic playing field. It's impossible. You want to know why it's impossible? Because white people don't have a level economic playing field. What are you talking about? Wall Street and the Federal Reserve and the central banks have jacked up everybody on the planet, regardless of nationality. Level playing field, where? Where have you ever? I've never seen that. Never. It's not. It doesn't exist. And again, these are talking points that they throw at everybody to cloud the real issues. We have more black millionaires and billionaires ever. This right now in the year 2020, this is the most successful black people as a whole have been, period. Period. You got more black millionaires and billionaires than any time in U.S. history today. Once again, you have more black millionaires and billionaires than you've ever had in U.S. history. Hands down. And still you're saying there's been no change. Really? So if having more, and matter of fact, you have more black people with college degrees, including bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, PhDs, than at any time in American history. There are more black PhDs today than there have ever been in U.S. history. You can't even turn the TV on without seeing a black face giving you the news. More than any time in history. There are more black people on TV than any time in American history. Stop me when I've said something wrong. And yet, according to you, Black Lives Matter, there's been no change. Really? Really? No one wants to deal with this. Why am I the only one in this room? No one else is sounding this off. They don't want to talk about this. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. Again, explain yourself. You can't. You have more blackness than ever before in U.S. history. And there's been no change. There's been no change, ladies and gentlemen. Black people have been involved in some of the most amazing things in the United States. And according to Black Lives Matter and Antifa and every other black intelligentsia organization, there has been no change. Really? Explain yourself. How so? How so? How so? You see what I'm saying? People don't want to deal with these facts because we don't have open debate anymore. We don't have real. I noticed another thing too. When my baby bro hooked me on to what I was telling you earlier. Even the way they did their debates, it was so gentlemanly. Even when things got a little heated, it never got beyond a certain point. You can listen to their debates, and each person was able to talk and get their talking points out. No one was attacked. No one had to experience ad hominem attacks, personal attacks on a person's character. None of that. They sat around that table, all having different viewpoints. Some you could say were true intellectual enemies, but during that debate, like I said, it never reduced to name calling and ad hominem attacks. They were able to really set up go at it without that. And guess what? I noticed something that was different back in the 1960s debate versus the fake debates we have now, because they're zero. They don't really have them. The mainstream media tells you what they want you to think. People were given time to speak for like 20 minutes uninterrupted in a debate. And a lot of it was televised. It was on TV. And I thought, I was like, man, these gentlemen are really scholarly and very, and they dealt with stuff. And they called each other to the carpet. They called out each other's hypocrisy. When Malcolm X got caught in something that he said, and dude brought it up to him, he was like, well, wait a minute, no, I got your quote. He was like, no, I didn't say it. Well, I got your quote right here. What did you mean by what you said? Because you said XYZ. And I was like, oh snap! They caught him. They got him. And then when Malcolm X would call them out on something, what I'm saying? It was like, well, it was just so dope the way they went at each other and stuff. And I thought it was so scholarly. You didn't hear no cussing or yelling or screaming or pounding on the table, acting like a madman. You didn't see none of that. Okay, you didn't see none of that. It was gentlemanly. It was scholarly. All right, and I thought that was dope. You don't have that now. It's chaos now. Back then, everybody was civil, and they could talk. They could express themselves with words, and that's what it was. No one stormed off the camera. And was like, "I'm not talking. You hurt my feelings." You didn't have that. You didn't have that. Okay, and it's hilarious how this is happening. All right. And okay, I see somebody say, with growing population, of course, there will be more than ever in history. Just how pumping money into the stock market makes price more than ever in history. No, population does not equal change, because in that case, China has 1 billion people and it's still in the same situation. It's still communist. People still aren't free. People are still controlled by the government. So, nah, population does not equal change. I'm talking about actual facts. Just because you have more rats in a dilapidated building, it doesn't change the fact that it's still a dilapidated building. Just like it wouldn't if you had less rats. If all of a sudden the rats moved out and decided they didn't want to make that their home anymore, the building is still dilapidated with or without the rats. So population does not equal change. I'm talking about facts. Let's stay on topic with the facts. The facts are, regardless of population, there are still more successful Black people in the United States per capita. However you want to crunch the numbers, the arithmetic, it still equals more. Still equals more. All right. There's just nothing that you have to deal with. The lump of clay before you. The lump of clay before you. All right. So let's deal with what we have before us. The country has been dumbed down, though, in all of this. In this process, the country as a whole has been dumbed down. And that hasn't been just been targeted against Black people or quote unquote minorities. The dumbing down of our educational system is affecting and has affected everyone. So let's do the knowledge to that. Let's look at the mathematics behind that. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you disagree, let's get into some facts. Don't you just love facts? You know? Peep this. Here's something that you don't know because this is probably not shown in your local media. Excuse me. The dumbing down of America continues, folks. Students at the University of Washington are demanding that Black students be given leniency on finals because they are too busy fighting for their rights to sit down and study. The University of Washington is advertising and advising professors to do just that. An online petition calls for laxed grading and accommodations, specifically for Black students. So far, the petition has amassed more than 26,000 signatures. Give Black students a break. We're already disproportionately impacted by this pandemic in terms of healthcare access and financial hardship. Now add state-sanctioned violence. How do you expect us to enter finals in this headspace? Reads the petition. I don't know, maybe sitting down and studying and doing your work and stop making excuses for why you can't study. You need to encourage and demand professors to accommodate their Black students during this time. If UW truly understands our pain, UW will be a part of alleviating it. The petition continues. We can't sit back and watch as injustices unfold before our eyes. We don't have the privilege that white and non-Black students do to ignore what's happening and stay at home and to study for finals. The petition added. We're busy fighting for our rights and our rights of future Black children and students to sit down and study. The least UW could do is demand professors to accommodate us during this time. Us, whether this was written by or they're speaking for Black people, doesn't matter. 26,000 signatures. Quote, I recognize that this institution and others across the country were not built to serve marginalized students, specifically Black students. Still to this day, institutions such as UW do not serve Black students to the same capacity that white students benefit from. Student government president Kelly Pierce told The Daily, end quote. A template to help professors announce these accommodations has been circulating on social media, reading, Dear students, I am writing to you to offer accommodations for Black students in this class during the end of this class and finals. Many Black students are not just using this time to cope emotionally, but to fight on the front lines of these protests and actively work and take action on what has been happening to the Black community. It continues. Nicole McNichols, UW psychology professor, provided Campus Reform with a copy of the email she sent to her own students. All right, this is a psychology professor on the campus. I sent this on Sunday before I knew about the petition, McNichols said. Obviously, I support the petition and absolutely believe the accommodations and requests should be honored by all faculty. Students need all the support and compassion we can afford to give them right now. The email sent by McNichols to her students reads, I wanted to reach out and acknowledge the incredible grief, fear, and loneliness that I know many of you are experiencing in light of recent and not so recent events. These are frightening times, and I know that many of you are struggling emotionally as our country suffers not only from a pandemic, but also from the aberrant racism, overwhelming violence, and palpable rage. These events are terrible, And it's completely understandable to feel scared and alone right now. Last I think, we all could use a break right now, as these times certainly call for compassion. Given this, there will be a following change to the course policies. First, the remaining homework chapters are being put into review mode. Everyone will receive full points. Second, I have decided to drop everyone's lowest exam score. This means that you may opt out of taking exam 3 if you just don't feel up to it, or if you are happy with your scores from exam 1 and 2. The email added. UW Director of Media Relations Victor Balta directed campus reform to a message that was sent to all instructors Monday, asking them to consider that while we are together as a community, some are being affected more than others. I think the statement clearly lays out a couple of examples of what instructors could provide to their students, such as extra time to finish assignments or a final examination optional approach, said Balta. In the message, the university told professors in these final weeks of the quarter, as assessments become due and exams are taken, to be especially responsive to the needs that your students, especially those who are members of the Black community, may have for accommodations as we conclude the school year. Accommodations might include extra time to finish assignments or providing a final examination optional pathway. For example, the memo continued. You can't make this stuff up, people. You can't. I know you heard me. I know you heard that. I know you did. This is what they think of you, Black people. Why aren't you mad at this? They're saying that you have lowered brain and mental capacity and that you need to be dumbed down even further and be given an exit pass from your exams. Really? 26,000 signatures? See what I'm saying? No one's dealing with this. No one's talking about this. No one has a problem with this. Really? You're already dumbed down. Now you want to dumb them down some more? Black people, you agree with this? You think this is right? This is cool? You should be given a pass on your studies? They're saying you don't have the mental faculty, the mental facilities, the ability to pass your exam, so you should be given a pass. They're saying you can't really mentally and emotionally compete, so you must be given a pass. Oh, just give them a pass. They're dumb anyway. You know they're not going to be able to pass the exam. And we as a university, we can't take this kind of heat. We don't want to be targeted. So let's just give them a pass. All Black people get a pass. You can just graduate. Just give them a degree. Why stop there? Just give every Black person a degree and tell them they don't have to come back to school no more. Whether you're a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, or a senior, doesn't matter. Here's your 4-year degree. Have a nice day. Because you're Black, because you don't have the mental capacity or the self-discipline to prioritize anything in your life. You don't have the discipline to sit down and study. Therefore, you get a pass. Because you're Black. Only because you're Black. You're gonna get a pass because you're Black. This should be an insult to every Black student at this university. But nope. We get something else. We get 26,000 signatures saying, yeah, let's make this happen. And these are the people that are going to be running the country in the future? Really? We're going to be releasing this type of these kind of graduates or students into society? See what I'm saying? People, see what happens when you don't do the knowledge to stuff? Really? This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Beyond my wildest dreams, I didn't think we would ever read anything like that. Ever. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who lack critical thinking abilities. This right here is a punch in the face. And no one is outraged. No one in the black community. Where's the NAACP on this? Where they at? Where's Black Lives Matter on this? Where's your black intelligentsia on this? Where are they? They think this is a good idea? Really? Huh? Where the hoteps at? Where they at? Y'all okay with this? They're basically saying that you black people don't have the discipline to sit down and do your studies. You lack the ability to prioritize things in your life. Getting a college degree, you're paying money to this university to be educated. And they're slapping you in the face with this right here. This goes against everything that higher learning is supposed to be about. This is ridiculous. I can't even believe that this is actually happening in 2020. I don't get it. I do not get it. I don't get it. It's just one of those situations where you have all these different things coming out at the same time. And again, black leadership should be speaking out against us, saying this is ridiculous. This is an insult. You're insulting us by doing this. But no. Where's Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton on this one? They probably think it's cool. Is Oprah Winfrey not offended? Huh? Is Bob Johnson not offended by this? What's up? What's up? I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't. What's up with the black professors? The black famous professors? Where you at? Obama don't have nothing to say about this? Huh? I thought education was so important. I thought it was all of this and all of that. Where's Dr. Boyce Watkins when you need him? Why isn't he speaking out against this? Does he think this is okay too? Really? Really? Come on, man. This is absurdity. It's absurdity. And you're being played. That's the other thing that makes it so jacked up, that you're being played. You are being played. This is what we're talking about. This is why, and this is why I am so negative on the situation. Because you give me nothing else to work with. You give me this. You can't make this stuff up. It's right here in our face. It exists. They're throwing it at you and daring you to say something about it. Meanwhile, Christians are being persecuted all over the world, and no one is outraged about that. Not at all. As a matter of fact, there was one Christian YouTube channel who got 2 strikes because they did a video about Christian persecution ramping up all over the world, worldwide, talking about he was inciting violence because he was talking about violence being done to Christians around the world. Really? I don't hear nobody marching about this or saying nothing about this. This is whack. Islamic terror attacks that target Christians in Turkey have been noticeably on the rise. During Christmas in 2011, for instance, a large-scale al-Qaeda plot to bomb all the churches in Ankara was exposed. Before Christmas 2015, ISIS issued death threats to at least 20 Protestant churches and warned that Quranic commandments urge us to slay the apostate like you. They're just doing what Muhammad told them to do. That's what he did. That's how he raised money for his raids, is by being a bandit. In 2017, as widely reported, a gunman dressed as Santa Claus entered a nightclub in Istanbul during New Year's celebrations and murdered 39 people. A heroic soldier of the Caliphate, the Islamic State, ISIS, later claimed, attacked the most famous nightclub where Christians were celebrating their pagan feasts. End quote. The statement further characterized the government of Turkey as being the servant of the cross. And once singular, Turkey hate for Christians has in fact come to permeate every segment of society, from the average Muslim citizen to the highest levels of government. The examples are many. Two of the most obvious, the slaughter of Christians and attacks on their churches, follow. In 2009, a group of young Turks, including the son of a mayor, broke into a Bible publishing house and what's that? Malta, whatever, however you say it. They bound its 3 Christian employees, tortured them for hours, and murdered them. We didn't do this for ourselves, but for our religion, one of the Turks accused said. Let this be a lesson to enemies of our religion. Later, they were all released from prison on a technicality. In 2012, an 85-year-old Armenian woman was stabbed to death in her Istanbul apartment. Lest anyone mistake the motive, her murderer carved a crucifix on her naked corpse. According to the report, that attack marks the 5th in the past 2 months against elderly Armenian women. One has lost an eye. In 2019, an 86-year-old Greek man was found murdered in his home with his hands and feet tied. He too had reportedly been tortured. In late 2019, a 16-year-old Muslim boy stabbed a Korean Christian evangelist in the heart several times. The 41-year-old husband and father died shortly thereafter. More common than the targeted killing of Christians and attacks related to churches. In 2014, in Istanbul, a random gang of Muslims disrupted a baptismal church service in Istanbul. They pushed their way into the church, yelling obscenities. One menacingly waved a knife at those in attendance. It's not the first, and it won't be the last, a local Christian said. In 2015, a Muslim man shouting, Allah Akbar, Allah is great, and revenge will be taken for Al-Aqsa Mosque, hurled a Molotov cocktail at Istanbul's Ayah Trinidad Orthodox Church and set parts of it on fire. In a separate incident, 4 Turks shouted, Allah Akbar, attacked and kicked at the door of the Agape Church in the Black Sea region. According to the besieged pastor, they wanted to go inside and hit someone or attack in some other way. In 2015, as many as 15 churches received death threats for denying Allah. Perverted infidels. One threat read, the time that we will strike your necks is soon. May Allah receive the glory and the praise. Threats are not anything new for the Protestant community who live in this country and want to raise their children here, church leaders commented. When a man opened fire on the St. Maria Catholic Church in Trabzon in 2018, it was just the latest in several attacks on that church. Weeks later, a makeshift bomb was thrown at its garden. In 2016, Muslims crying Allah Akbar vandalized the church with sledgehammers. In 2011, the church was targeted and threatened for its visible cross, and in 2006, its priest, Andrea Santoro, was shot dead during service. Threatening and defacing churches is especially common. In 2019, hate-filled graffiti, including "You are finished," was found on the Armenian Church of the Holy Mother of God in Istanbul. Commenting on it, and an Armenian activist tweeted, every year, scores of hate attacks are being carried out against churches and synagogues. In late 2019, while shouting abuses and physical threats against Christians gathered at the Church of St. Paul in Antalya, a man said he would take great pleasure in destroying the Christians as he viewed them as a type of parasitism on Turkey. Most recently, on May the 8th of 2020, In Istanbul, a man tried to torch a church that had been repeatedly attacked with hate-filled graffiti, among other desecrations. Rather than threaten or attack churches, Turkish authorities have the power simply to confiscate or close them. In one instance, police similar to the martyrs mentioned above interrupted a baptismal ceremony while raiding and subsequently shutting down an unauthorized church. Turkey does not have a pathway for legalization of churches. When pretexts cannot be found, assailants sometimes resort to other tactics in an apparent attempt to conceal the online presence of at least one church. For instance, authorities labeled its website pornographic and blocked it. The ban was horrible, a church representative responded. It's a shame. It really pains us at having this kind of accusation when we have a high moral standard. In addition, ancient churches that predate Islam by centuries, including Stadius Monastery, the oldest Christian place of worship in Asia Minor, and founded a millennium before the Islamic conquest in the 14th century, are being transformed into mosques. After explaining how the Turkish government built nearly 9,000 mosques in one decade while banning liturgy in the Somalia Monastery, another historic site inaugurated in 386, about 1,000 years before Asia Minor became Turkey, this arbitrary ban seems to be yet another demonstration of the unofficial second-class status of Christians in Turkey. Hate for Christians in Turkey has reached the point where infidels are pursued even beyond the grave. Attacks on Christian cemeteries are on the rise, prompting one Christian to ask, is it now the turn of our deceased? According to a March 2020 report, 20 of 72 gravestones in just one Christian cemetery in Ankara were found destroyed. In another recent incident, the desecrators broke a cross off a deceased woman's grave. A few days earlier, her church burial service had been interrupted by cries of Allahu Akbar. What is behind all these attacks on anything and everything Christian? People, buildings, even graves. The recent response of a journalist in Turkey was an environment of hate. Quote, but this hateful environment did not emerge out of nowhere. The seeds of this hatred are spread, beginning at primary schools through books printed by the Ministry of National Education, portraying Christians as enemies and traitors. The indoctrination continues through newspapers and television channels in line with state policies. And of course, the sermons at mosques and talk at coffee houses further stir up this hatred, end quote. In other words, Turks, once secular, are now educated to hate Christians. Notably, even that is not enough to prevent ISIS from accusing Turkey of being a servant of the cross. Just what, then, do so-called radical Muslims, between 63 and 287 million Muslims, support ISIS in just 11 nations regard as the proper treatment of Christians? Why did I go there? The reason why I went there is because what you don't understand is that this is happening too in the United States of America, but they've been taking your eyes off of it with all these other issues. But yes, America has been vigorously scrubbing Christianity, biblical Christianity, out of every aspect of its society. Now what you see is what we call the visible church, which is not the true church. You see them taking the mainstream. They're the ones that, whenever the media is trying to push an agenda, they bring them on to speak. And they always speak and toe the government line. Whatever they've been asked to talk about, they will take the side of. And that's why throughout all these protests you've been seeing, you've been having them come out and parrot all of this also. That's what they do. But I have to tell you, people, this is becoming very scary. If you don't think that what I just read to you that's happening overseas in Turkey is coming here, oh, you need to wake up and smell the coffee, because that's what's happening right here, right now. They're preparing us here. One of the last stages as this country is burning is you're going to see the ramping up of the persecution of Christians here too. Not the fake Christians, but real Christians. The fake Christians will be the ones taking the lead, persecuting the real Christians. All right. Now, I know that some people take issue when we cover different things. They may say we're being divisive or what have you, but we're not. I shouldn't have to put a disclosure on everything that I say. But I know here in the United States, you have to. Like certain things you may say, you have to say pause before you say it, because then people will think that you're gay. I don't subscribe to that. I just don't. It is what it is. Okay. We're talking about facts. You can be emotional if you want to, but we're talking about truth and facts. Over the past several decades, Americans have viewed regularly televised dramatic episodes of political theater. The use of the word episode is especially appropriate because the dramatic scenes are sequential and continuously broadcasted onto electronic screens. The drama is designed to elicit emotional, foment anger, and unite or divide the nation in order to ultimately affect change. The societal cataclysms we're experiencing now could be naturally occurring as the result of certain trends like demographics, technology, modernization, education, centralization, economic inequality, political platforms, or even systemic corruption and civilizational decay. On the other hand, it could be the upheavals are directed in consonance with scripts written by an inner circle of powerful people and in accordance to the Hegelian dialectic. How citizens view the changes realized by the United States over the past few decades, in particular, will depend upon their interpretations of probabilities and outcomes, or rather, to the extent they believe in coincidence or conspiracy. Many believe grand conspiracies are implausible because ambitious schemes too often fail, and it's inconceivable that scrupulous whistleblowers will refuse to expose the plans of powerful conspirators. And these objections have a ring of truth, unless, of course, the powerful few people who have all the power have only advanced those who've demonstrated allegiance while shunning, banishing, imprisoning, or expiring those who won't fall in line. Perhaps this would explain why the likes of Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and McCabe continue about their book tours as Assange and Manafort and Stone remain under lock and key. Again, just observation. In intelligence circles, we know control is administered via need-to-know, compartmentalization, and secured by constant surveillance. So perhaps blackmail and threats to individuals and loved ones are secret tactics used to compel loyalty. Even so, there have been US presidents who have acted as whistleblowers at one time or another, including Lincoln, Wilson, Eisenhower, and Kennedy, each drawing attention to a nebulous cult of power, acting as political puppet masters and pulling of purse strings, or as automotive magnate Henry Ford in 1863 from 1947, which is birth and death, once stated. It was well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. That's right, Henry Ford actually said that. It's also a fact that modern mass media today is owned by a handful of corporations and thus under the control of a few billionaires. Could it be possible the cult would collude to advance media narratives that further their interest while promoting agendas for their sole benefit? Of course it's possible. Why wouldn't they? In America, during the new millennium, Bush the Younger delivered the Patriot Act and the War on Terror. The Obama administration witnessed the rise of the Tea Party and Occupation Wall Street. That's right. That was under Obama. For those that weren't paying attention, the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street happened under Obama. And from the time Donald Trump descended the escalator in 2015, the timeline has been a continuum of fascinating and unfortunate events. In the spring of 2016, Broomhilda and her army of super delegates swept the still smoking ashes of Nicholas right back up the nation's chimney. In the June of that year, the first FISA warrant on Trump was denied, and that was followed by the infamous snakes on a plane meeting between Bill Clinton and then Attorney General Loretta Lynch. Seth Rich, a data analyst for the Democratic National Committee, was murdered in D.C. the very next month. However, in light of current events, now consider what also took place in the spring of 2016 and seemingly behind the curtain of the nation's political stage, the inaugural 2020 summit. In May 2016, at the United Nations headquarters in New York, the inaugural ID 2020 summit brought together over 400 people to discuss how to provide a unique digital identity to everyone on the planet, including the 1.5 billion people living without any form of recognized identification. Now, I bet most people did not realize that we have that many, that we have 1.5 billion people that don't have recognized identification, so they're ghosts. Indeed, 2020 vision has brought past occurrences into better focus. Since the election of Trump, we've watched one political episode after another: election hacking, impeachment, a pandemic, and just like regular commercial breaks came the seemingly strategic school, church, synagogue, country music, and garlic festival shootings, along with the occasional U.S. mail or Syria bombing. All of these episodes made for riveting and dramatic televised history. Now, remember, I exposed this back during my documentaries in 2016, that everything that has been happening is literally a script. It is a script, and everyone plays their part in the script. People didn't grasp or understand what I said back then, but nothing has changed. It is literally a script. Like, for real, it's a script. Nothing that is happening that hasn't been planned to happen. Even the responses have been planned. Hard to believe, though. Perhaps, therefore, the apparent on-screen murder of George Floyd now serves as the new facilitator of COVID-19. Fizzles in the summer sun, at least until the vitamin D depletions this fall and winter deliver sufficient reinfection rates to justify real societal lockdowns next time. And yes, be assured of this: COVID-19 will be back next season in force, once again dominating the airwaves. In fact, we're already seeing previews as the country reopens. Pursuant to data compiled by the New York Times comes the following headline: Texas, North Carolina, Arizona see rising cases as they reopen. The 7-day average in new cases in all three states has also been rising, according to data compiled by the New York Times. Texas and Arizona are both led by Republican governors, while North Carolina has a Democratic governor. One reason for the increasing number of cases in all three states is that they are all seeing a significant rise in testing, which means more people carrying COVID-19 are being identified. Yes, Operation Dark Winter continues as headlines are broadcast into computing devices around the globe. New hotspots are emerging. New hotspots are emerging. It's easy to assume COVID-19 cases will go down after lockdown orders lift across the country, but unfortunately, the data suggests otherwise. New hotspots of COVID-19 are emerging across the United States. It's very important to be informed about your local data, says Ryan Pansaram, former U.S. Deputy Chief Technology Officer at the White House during the Obama administration and co-founder of COVID Exit Strategy, tells Yahoo Life. He and other public health and crisis experts with experience stemming from their work at the White House and the Department of Health and Human Services on the Ebola epidemic in West Africa joined forces to create COVID Exit Strategy with the goal of tracking each state's progress towards stopping the spread of the COVID-19. Are these episodes naturally occurring as the result of a sick and dying nation, or could they be magical media manifestations of the big lie? Regardless, people all across the political spectrum have been fooled by their feelings while viewing what appears to be political ploys. United States health officials are now warning that a new surge in coronavirus cases could occur following the protests over the death of George Floyd, a black man who was filmed while being murdered by police in Minneapolis. Paradoxically, the police report of the incident claimed Floyd had coronavirus and died after cardiac arrest. Seriously? Really? Is it just me, or do you also hear the laughter cackling from behind the curtain? Either way, the question remains: are we being psychologically manipulated by powerful people in order to affect political change? Because it seems only those under hypnosis would deny that current events in the United States have been politicized. The Wall Street Journal, for example, has reported on the politicization of coronavirus as it increasingly exacerbates the red-blue divide. Meaning, I told you guys that last week. All right. So this is being retorted again. Again, for those of you who miss the analogy, the Crips and the Bloods. Crips are blue, Bloods are red. Uncle Sam is one man who is both wearing both blue and red. Democrats are blue, represented by a donkey, and we have Republicans are red, illustrated by an elephant. We have two halves of the same whole. It appears that you have two parties, but you really only have one. They're on the same team, on the same side. The public theater will show you that they're fighting and can't agree on anything. But behind the scenes, they agree on all things. For those of you who still have problems understanding this blue-red dichotomy, think of it as a football team. On game day, Washington Redskins versus the Dallas Cowboys. On game day, you see the Redskins uniform and you see the Dallas Cowboys uniform. You know who's on what team by the colors that they wear. But if you were to go and watch the practice that took place before the game, you would see Redskins in the field wearing different colors. You would see one, it would look like two teams are playing. You see one team with one color on and another with another color. One may have red shirt, one have white shirts, and it will look like two different teams are on the field competing against each other. So a person who doesn't know any better, who was invited to a practice and doesn't know anything about football and saw these two teams on the field, battling out with each other, will say, "Wow, they're really going at it," because he doesn't know that no, it may look like they're working against each other, but they're not. They're on the same team. Everything that they're doing right now makes it look like they're in opposition against each other, but in all actuality, they're on the same team and they are pursuing the same goal. And then when game day comes, you see them now. You don't see two different uniforms. You see one uniform. During practice, you see two different. But when it's game time, you see one uniform. Same thing. During practice, when they're going before the camera, you see the Democrats versus the Republicans. But what you don't understand is on game day, it's only one color, and that's behind closed doors. They will pass the laws and legislations that they want passed. They agree on all things. Because it seems only those under hypnosis would deny that current events in the U.S. have been politicized. The Wall Street Journal, for example, has reported on the polarization of coronavirus as it increasingly exacerbates the red-blue divide. 2/3 of confirmed coronavirus cases are in states with Democratic governors. When states are measured by the sheer number of coronavirus cases, 6 of the top 7 have Democratic governors. Together, those 6 blue states have about half of the nation's cases, though only about a third of its population. Coronavirus deaths tell a similar story. 8 of the 9 states with the most deaths due to the virus are states with Democratic governors. When measured by deaths per capita, 8 of the top 9 states also have Democratic governors. And it's in the Senate where the imbalance between coronavirus impact and political clout is most active. Those 6 hardest hit blue states have more than half the country's coronavirus cases and a third of its population, yet only 12% of the votes in the Senate. It is almost a perfect formula for political tensions. President Trump is straddling this red and blue divide. In sheer political terms, 2 of the hardest hit states, Michigan and Pennsylvania, are critical to him because they happen to be swing states he carried in the 2016 election. See, you can't make this stuff up, people. It's all orchestrated. It's like a well-written orchestra. Sounds like Beethoven up in here. And now it's being reported that President Trump's re-election odds have taken a turn for the worse. So why has COVID-19 selectively attacked blue states more than red ones? It could be a matter of blue states having a higher density population, or it could be just more political chicanery. And for the same reason, pallets of bricks have mysteriously materialized in cities prior to protests in the aftermath of the George Floyd snuff film. Again, pallets of bricks have mysteriously materialized in cities prior to protests in the aftermath of the George Floyd snuff film. It should be noted, I believe that was one of Pastor Wilkinson's prophetic dreams he had back in the late 1960s, where he said that at some point, if my memory serves me correct, that you'll be seeing murderers live on TV. Well, that's exactly what's happening right now. Interesting, isn't it? Indeed, every revolution starts with a spark, and the modern lockdowns and uprisings are televised. As written in my last article, COVID-19 accomplished many political objectives. The writer states, the coronavirus pinprick collapsed the economic everything bubble and deflected the blame away from the bankers who blew it up. At the same time, it turned martial law into self-quarantine and abolished the First Amendment rights of American citizens, including the free exercise of religion, the freedom of speech, and the right to peaceably assemble, all under the arbitrary mandates of social distancing. Additionally, cash has been transitioned into a viral threat, thus paving the way for a new digital world order and the end of privacy. This is not by accident, people. It's by what? Design. I don't know how more blunt this can be put. Some people are still not getting it. How dense do you have to be? How can you not see this happening right before your eyes? It's looking right at you. It's saying, "What's up? How you doing?" All right? It's right there. The televised outbreak also inflamed the fear and survival instincts of people in order to turn on each other, while it massaged Wall Street and murdered Main Street. To be sure, supply lines have been centralized via Walmart and Amazon as mom and pop businesses were suffocated like George Floyd, then set on fire. For those with eyes wide open, it's become obvious how chaos reigns while Operation Dirty Money transitions the nations into a cashless future and a new world order. The almighty dollar has lost some of its might in the time of COVID-19, while most struggling businesses will take payment in any form to make ends meet during the economic downturn. A minority reject cash, fearing that it could be transmission vehicles for the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Some experts predict that the pandemic will accelerate a steady flight by American consumers away from dollars and cents. But a survey of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation found that roughly 6% of the U.S. population, about 14.1 million adults, doesn't have a checking or savings account and thus can't access funds online. That gap will have to be closed if America's ever to come closer to a cashless future. But are these changes the result of coincidence or conspiracy? I'm going to tell you right now, it is definitely conspiracy. There's no such thing as coincidence. Magazog, I see you in the live chat, homie. You said you think you're being censored. I don't know who censored. Are you having problems in the live? Are you not able to type or something? If anyone's having problems in the live chat, please let me know. Because no one is being at least on my end, no one's being censored. There is no that's not how I get down. I believe in free speech. That's just what it is. I believe in free speech. So I don't believe in censoring anyone. We can agree, we can debate, we can agree to disagree. This is the marketplace of ideas on this live. So I'm not censoring any one of you. If anyone's having problems typing anything in the live, just please let me know, because I don't know what that's about. I haven't censored anybody. All right. But are these changes the result of coincidence or conspiracy? Seriously, how could these long desired objectives of the establishment not be the result of conspiracy? Because just like clockwork, as coronavirus was shown to be nonsense, the channel was changed once again, this time to cities on fire. So whether the deception or never letting a crisis go to waste, the George Floyd drama has now assumed center stage, at least until the COVID-19 show returns next season. The urban riots, and it's always urban. Notice how you don't see suburban riots. You see urban riots. The urban riots could be used to further degrade American institutions, infrastructure, economy, and societal unity, or be exploited as the means to lock down entire regions of the country, or worse, as an excuse to declare martial law nationally. It's also possible a Fort Sumter moment could occur in the suburbs, thus escalating the Civil War to new levels. It's not hard to imagine armed Caucasians defending their lives and property by mowing down Antifa and Black Lives Matter activists in front yards of formerly quiet neighborhoods around the country. This would in turn trigger new proposed gun control measures by the cities, the states, and federal authoritarians just in time and right on schedule. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you under the sound of my voice are playing right into their hands with all this looting and rioting. This is what they want. This sort of Hegelian change meets the end goals of the cult because their ultimate desire is to rule over a diminished global population. This is not conspiracy, however, because the Malthusian dreams of the cult are well documented and even etched upon the Georgia Guidestones as number one, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Certainly, the cult desires a culling of the herd, so to speak, yet with the permission of those willing to be ruled. The aristocracy prefers servants and subjects. After all, and this would be the fate of the lower caste slaves who survive. So, how might the cult of power get a majority of plebes to willingly surrender? By first activating their fear and survival instincts, and then showing them how effective China's authoritarian lockdowns have been, particularly in slowing the spread of coronaviruses and dampening burgeoning revolutions. In viewing the maps of Asia on the Johns Hopkins dashboard, it does appear China's authoritarian measures have stamped out coronaviruses like raid on bugs. At the same time, COVID-19 forced the Hong Kong protesters to shelter in place. However, in America, the U.S. Constitution has turned America red with the blood of innocents. Some might ask, why did Trump and so many careless governors pander to those desiring their own selfish liberties over the very lives of others? Why did they reopen their states so soon? And why won't weak-willed blue state mayors and governors protect the citizenry from lawless rioters? Yeah, why is that? Certainly, the red tide could ebb and flow until all boats are sunk. Unless enough people are awakened, then the haunt mob would be forced to reassess their schemes. In any case, even if American society continues to sink past the point of no return, I would also not be surprised if any future vaccinations would be voluntary instead of mandatory. Because if the deluded Luciferians are actually playing a cosmic chess match in their heads, then they want people to choose. And those who refuse to fall with them would, as a result, suffer societal ostracization, economic isolation, starvation, and death. The vaccine deniers would then occupy the lowest caste of the New World Order. They would be the new untouchables. Certainly, therefore, the George Floyd riots are just another means of now sowing seeds of chaos to reap an orderly harvest later. The cult must tear down what it wishes to rebuild in its own image. The following video takes 12 minutes to view, and its poetic presentation explores the mechanics of ritual initiation, transformation, and change, and especially as applied to the cult language and electronic programming. Like I said, everything, ladies and gentlemen, is happening for a reason. Nothing that you see is by mistake. I repeat, nothing that you see is by mistake. It's all by design. The globalists know exactly what they are doing. Okay? It's just that simple. Certainly, therefore, the George Floyd riots are not just another means of now sowing seeds of chaos to reap an orderly harvest later. The cults must tear down what it wishes to rebuild in its own image, ladies and gentlemen. There's no way in the world that you are going to be able to do otherwise. For those who didn't wish to take the time to view the video, just know it addresses change as being facilitated via the 3 stages of an initiation ritual and to the actual audio soundtracks of the COVID-19 outbreak. Number 1 is isolation for purification, suspension of the normal ways, surrender, sacrifice, masking, and trauma. Number 2, the transition. The old self dies, descending into a state of liminality, fever, dream, void in the middle, blank canvas. And third, integration into the new reality or resurrection to the new normal. This is some sick stuff, ladies and gentlemen. But they really, 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 really believe in this. And this is what they want. They want this so bad that they can almost taste it. I posted a link here in the live chat for you for the video, just in case you're so inclined to view it. Recently, a blogger named Charles Einstein wrote an article named The Coronation and later responded to a critique of that article by writing another piece entitled The Conspiracy Myth. The later article was in turn retweeted by the chief executive officer of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. In reading both articles, it appeared the author defined the allegorical donut without its hole in the center. After all, what is a conspiracy if not 2 or more people making secret plans? And what is a donut without a hole? All that remains is sugar, flour, water, leavening oil, and artificial flavors. But that's what we see, feel, taste, and smell. Is that all there is, or is there more? Correspondingly, Einstein's title of The Coronation is especially interesting given that corona means crown. And the word coronation is a portmanteau of coronation. Definition of coronation: the act or occasion of crowning, also accession to the highest office. Very interesting information there, to say the least. See, when you break things down and define words, you can get to the bottom of stuff. Has America recently been subsumed by those who would be our rulers, or was the nation taken over long ago and now the cult is simply making their reign official? In truth, the answers to both of those questions are right on the money. Keep your eye on the donut and not the hole. There is no denying the fix is in, or that the media and the tech titans are colluding with the cult. One example of this is how the media has presented former software mogul and current World Health guru Bill Gates as a boogeyman of virus conspiracy theorists. False claims targeting billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates are gaining traction online since the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, with experts warning they could hamper efforts to curb the virus. Doctored photos and fabricated news articles crafted by conspiracy theorists shared thousands of times on social media platforms and messaging apps in various languages has gone as far as accusing the Microsoft founder of creating the outbreak. Bill Gates has always been a target of specific conspiracy communities, said Rory Smith, research manager at First Draft, a nonprofit that provides research and training for journalists. Gates, whose eponymous foundation has spent billions of dollars improving healthcare in developing countries over the past 20 years, has become a kind of abstract boogeyman, said Whitney Phillips, an assistant professor at New York Syracuse University, where she teaches digital ethics. These conspiracies are powerful enough to drive down institutional trust around health organizations. As a result, possibly drive down vaccination rates, which is worrying, Smith said. See, propaganda is powerful, folks. Yet in that article, there was no mention of Gates' involvement with vaccine production or the October 2019 Event 201 exercise held in New York City, a live simulation of the actual coronavirus outbreak that occurred just weeks before the first cases was made public. Why then are these facts not deemed newsworthy by the mainstream media? Again, we're dealing with facts and truths. See how propaganda can be so deceptive and so powerful? And when you don't do the knowledge to stuff, how it can really, you can be deceived. Again, the article did not mention Bill Gates' involvement with vaccine production or the 2019 Event 201 exercise held in New York City. Would any coincidence theories care to answer that question? Because that's how the cult works. They selectively conceal pertinent information while censoring any media sources that report the truth. Ladies and gentlemen, censorship is not necessarily what you think it is. Censorship is not, it's not about quieting dissent. It's not what it's about at all. Censorship, you guys, is not even about taking away your free speech. Just because YouTube bans your video doesn't take away your free speech. You can still post another video, or you can post another video of another platform. So they have not taken away your free speech. Censorship is not about taking away anything. See, that's where people are wrong. Do you want to know what censorship is really about? Censorship is all about protection, you guys. Censorship is about protecting you from the truth. Censorship is about putting a moat and a brick wall and throwing in some great white sharks and alligators in the moat. They build a wall around the truth. They want to protect you from the truth. That's what censorship is all about. If there were no truth to be had, there would be no need for censorship. They have to protect you from getting to the truth. Okay? Please understand that. All right? Remember item 7 from the Event 201 website recommendations page. The main text: governments and the private sector should assign a greater priority to developing methods to combat mis- and disinformation. Governments will need to partner with traditional and social media companies to research and develop nimble approaches to countering misinformation. Again, they're taking all this energy and steps to protect you from truth, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to protect people from a lie, but you do need to protect them from getting at the truth. National public health agencies should work in close collaborations with the WHO to create the capability to rapidly develop and release consistent health messages. For their part, media companies should commit to ensuring the authoritative messages are prioritized and that false messages are suppressed, including through the use of technology. Again, you don't need to do that with a lie. You only need to put that amount of energy into the truth, ladies and gentlemen. Lies fall under the weight of themselves. You do not need to do that. You only do this when you're protecting someone from getting at the truth. So you have to relabel the truth. The truth is not truth. The truth is disinformation. The truth is misinformation. So you have to rename the truth. That's what you're doing. You don't need to do this for lies. I don't see them going through all these steps against lies, outright lies. They're only doing it to protect you from the truth. Once again, if you watch the Plandemic movie, then you'll know what's up. And if you watch it, you'll recall that there was a cellular and molecular biologist, Judy Mikovits, PhD. It's an absolutely stunning 26 minutes. In the 16 minute, 15 second, and through the 18 minute, 45 second segment of the video, Milkovits discusses hydrochloroquine as well as COVID-19 treatments. And of course, her assessments digress from the Orwellian propaganda we've seen in the mainstream daily headlines. So when Yahoo.com recently illuminated smart devices around the globe on how hydrochloroquine shows no virus benefit and raises death risk, we can pretty much take it to the bank that hydrochloroquine is an effective treatment for COVID-19 and with minimal death risk, especially when a Yale epidemiologist says hydrochloroquine should be made widely available and promoted immediately. And a Los Angeles physician has claimed the following: every patient I prescribed hydrochloroquine to has been very, very ill, and within 8 to 12 hours, they were basically symptom free. Now, I covered this last week, all right, as far as the hydrochloroquine, and you have to take these other two things with it. And that's what makes it effective, not just using it by itself, but you have to add, I think it was zinc or something like that. So those are very important facts too. Hold on one second. All right, but you won't find this type of information anywhere in the mainstream media because it stands in the way of the Event 201 recommendations. The vaccine agenda, big pharma profits, and the end goals of the cult of power. Correspondingly, Trump heroic impeachment defender, Professor Alan Dershowitz, has now claimed the state has the right to plunge a needle into your arm. Harvard Law School emeritus professor Alan Dershowitz claimed in an interview that the government has a constitutional right under the 10th Amendment to forcibly vaccinate a citizen to curb the spread of a contagious disease. Let me put it clearly, quote, "You have no constitutional right to endanger the public and spread the disease, even if you disagree. You have no right not to be vaccinated. You have no right not to wear a mask. You have no right to open up your business," end quote. It's just too perfect not to have been planned. Even if you don't agree, at the very least, ask yourself this: what were the odds? But you ain't seen nothing yet. The following video is 22 minutes in length. It's a production by a lady who acquired her contract tracing certificate and reveals the stealth fascism of contact tracing enforcement. In the above video, at around 1 minute mark, you'll see U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi espoused the 3 T's that are to be combined with COVID-19 social distancing: testing, tracing, and treatment. Positive tests for coronavirus are to be turned over to contact tracers to make sure any infected people are isolated, even from their own pets. The infected must also prove to the contact tracer they have the space to be isolated, and if any children live in a household, the tracer is supposed to involve social services. They're coming at you full force. Anyone who tests positive for COVID-19 must not leave their home, even those who are symptom-free. Moreover, for those who initially test positive, remain healthy, and are later released from quarantine, if they eat at a restaurant where another person is later determined to have been infected, then they all must submit to quarantine, including those who were released previously. Currently, in the state of California, employers of quarantine employees are held responsible for any workman's comp through July 2020, and this will most likely be extended. Furthermore, the tracers will consult with infected people to reference their social media accounts to gather information on everywhere they were recently and with whom they were in contact. Then all of those people, even strangers in a restaurant, will be contacted. Sick people are to be quarantined for 10 days, and those without symptoms for 14 days, including the families of the infected, for at least 14 days from their last contact with the infected. The politicians and governors have publicly claimed that contact tracing is voluntary, but for those who don't immediately quarantine, a detention order may be issued and enforced by the police to assure compliance. Other options for noncompliance may include a court order, and those who are held in contempt of the court may be incarcerated, imprisoned at a quarantine site via electronic monitoring, and or fined up to $2,000 a day. At the 8:30 to 9:30 segment of the video, a clip of Washington State Governor Jay Inslee is shown spinning non-compliance enforcement by referencing family support personnel who attend to those in quarantine, like state conscripted nannies. Next, the mole describes how tracers are to view privacy as being subordinate to the greater good and tells how positive tests will be entered into an electronic database, which in an ensuing news clip is revealed as law enforcement specific information entered for purposes of computer-aided dispatch. In the same clip, Jacqueline Kirby of the El Paso County, Colorado Sheriff's Office admits their home addresses are flagged to identify those who have tested positive for COVID-19. Smartphone apps are then discussed in the video as a means for businesses to track customers for their safety, at least until a centralized database with GPS tracking becomes available, like currently used in China and North Korea. In countries like India and New Zealand, the apps are said to be voluntary, but you can't go anywhere or buy anything without the app. The video then reveals for U.S. states with contact tracing software in place and how Google and Apple iOS updates allow Bluetooth beacons to assist tracing even without an app downloaded. Let's go back for a second. We miss nothing. All right. In countries like India and New Zealand, the apps are said to be voluntary. However, you can't go anywhere or buy anything without the app. Don't forget the mark of the beast. You will not be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. The technology is right in our face. The implementation is right here. You will not be able to buy or sell anything without it. Not only have they thrown your privacy out the window, ladies and gentlemen, but they've also just overturned HIPAA. Under the HIPAA Act, your right to privacy concerning your medical information is exactly that, private. But they want to make it now public. This flies in the face of HIPAA. So are they doing away with HIPAA? Because what you're doing is you're making it known. You're giving out people's medical information diagnoses, and you're giving out their address. Really? Towards the end of the video, the proposed HR 666 legislation is discussed as potentially funding the contact tracing initiative to the tune of $100 billion. And finally, if you only have time to watch one segment of the above video, view the clip of Ohio Governor Mike DeWine from around 20 minutes and 4 seconds to 22 minutes and 34 seconds mark. Here, reporter reveals the larger social agenda behind COVID-19 that includes a version to rectify the structural violence of capitalism. Capitalism hasn't done anything wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Corruption is the problem, not capitalism. That is seen as the root cause of racism, gender inequality, xenophobia, and homophobia. Next, the reporter asked Governor DeWine why he would choose to partner with those who demonize capitalism and whose goals seem to be rooted in liberation theology based on Marxist ideals. The governor's answer is quite illuminating, to say the least. First of all, that whole liberation theology, man, is absolute garbage. All right, you got people still spitting that nonsense. All right. Trying to rewrite scripture. What they're doing is misinterpreting scripture. All right, Jesus was not a social justice warrior. All right, so cut it out. You're not supposed to add to the word or take from it. Don't play yourself like that. Cut it out. So it does appear COVID-19 is another blitz by the political left, and the George Floyd riots are surely another prong of the same attack, even at the very least as a diversion for what is taking place with the contact tracing initiative. Without a doubt, contact tracing must be killed in the cradle. If it's allowed to grow and expand, it will become a Marxist social justice weapon of unparalleled power. We're in a war for survival, and 75% of Americans have no clue as to what is actually happening. Normalcy bias is a you know what, because history is rhyming and not in good ways. This purge has high-tech teeth. And for those who believe Trump is real and about to drain the swamp, ask yourselves why he's not dead as Kennedy or irredeemably publicly disgraced like Harvey Weinstein. Why has Crossfire Hurricane investigator U.S. Attorney John Durham not suffered the fate of Seth Rich or Julian Assange? The cult could have also pulled the plug on the economy without providing the president the cover of coronavirus as an economic scapegoat, but that didn't happen. Now Trump is running against the second worst presidential candidate of all time, and after already having beaten the worst, again, what are the odds? Think about it. But no matter the odds, they always favor the House. And this will remain true for November, regardless of who wins in the 2020 election. Those placing their hope in political solutions to the nation's ills will, as usual, be quite disappointed. How many House and Senate Democrats have we seen stray from the herd? Not one, ever. Kavanaugh, Russiagate, Ukrainegate, never. And what about the never Trump Republicans and rhinos, which are Republicans in name only? Will they save the republic? No. The uniparty lives to serve the cult. Loyalty can be forced through fear. seduced by flattery, or may simply derive from a lust of conformity, money, sex, or power. But no matter the reason, the cult is being crowned as Trump tweets. So question every headline at all times and act with the best knowledge you have. Come out of the system. Know that people will wake up when they wake up. And in the meantime, words can be cold drops of conceptual water splashed upon the faces of those still sleeping. Even so, be careful with whom you cast your pearls. Seek like-minded people and realize the Orwellian episodes on our screens were written by the cult. And consequently, the plot lines are intended to deliver these denouncements. Control over those who consent and the depopulation of those deemed to be human, ballast, and the belligerent. To the cult, it's not personal, it's just time. I got to tell you, folks, again, you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. This is here, it is real, it is happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. Because it's already done. It's already been done. Once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in. It's impossible. Okay? I don't know what else to say on that. I think I covered it all. All right? Now you know what time it is. If you didn't, you got a dose of that reality this morning. That's how we roll here, folks. That's how we get down. I thought you knew. We don't play no games here, man. We go in. We go all in. Next, stay tuned for the next segment because we're gonna go and we're gonna deal with some more stuff. This is all we got time to deal with today. We went a little bit extra long, but no matter. We're gonna chill with all of that right now. We're not gonna go any deeper. We're done. I think we've covered and hit all the aspects that need to be hit for now. So I think we'll leave it at that. Know what I mean? See what else. I think that's it. I think we've hit it. I think I've done everything I need to do. I think I've covered everything I need to cover. So with that being done, yeah, they've gone all in, man. They've gone all in. All right, so we're gonna chill right here. I'll see everybody else in the trading room, and those of you who later on, I'll catch you for the end of the day report. Remember PulseWaveTrading.com. Come break bread with us. You can do it for as little as $9 a month. That's right. You can build that secondary income stream right now before it's too late. If you want to fight back against the Federal Reserve and the central banks and the cult, then you need to take back your monetary abilities. They're trying to close all the avenues of you being able to invest and make money or work. So you need that secondary income stream, and nothing does it like trading, man. PulseWaveTrading.com. And remember, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back, and smash that like button for me. Peace.